everybody, it's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, and today we're going to strip ology. We're going to talk all about the stripology ruler, and as a bonus segment, we're going to talk about, and it's generated by what people have said about what I said last week about the AccuQuilt videos that are on the YouTube channel for the AccuQuilt and how, well, how do I put it gently? They stink. And apparently I'm not the only one that thought that. So we're going to talk briefly about what makes a good tutorial when you're trying to learn something. But anyways, before we get to that, let's look at what I've been working at. Bit of a controversy between Walter and I about what things look like and what things don't look like. So I bought more Japanese fabric online here in Ontario, in a place out western part of Ontario, and it's real Japanese fabric, and I bought several meters of it in different things. And my idea was I was going to make a quilt using my Japanese fabrics to sort of commemorate our trip to Japan. And I wanted to use something that was iconic to Japan. So when you saw it, you'd say Japan. Well, what's more iconic than a kimono? And we saw some kimonos there, some very beautiful kimonos. They are definitely a work of art, for sure. So I thought, well, I wonder if I can find a block pattern for piecing a kimono. No, not one that looked like a kimono. The ones I found were all foundation paper piecing. Now, I am not a fan, or wasn't, of foundation paper piecing. I stay away from it like like it's a vicious dog that's going to eat my face off, kind of a thing. But then I decided, okay, I found one that I would like, and I finally got it. But before I did that, I tried to develop my own, and I'm going to show you my progression here. And Walter, I'm sure, will make a few comments about these as well. Okay, so down here, ignore the two blue things up at the top. This is all on my design board. Ignore these. This is me playing with trying to get points right on that stupid Alaska quilt thing. So that's a discussion for another day. But this is what I want you to see. Now, the very first one I did was this. And very stylized as a kimono, but basically, is it a kimono or is it an airplane or something in between? Don't know. Didn't like it. Moved on. Found some other pictures, and so I created this one. Now, I was liking this until I just didn't like the little pointy thing. Both of them have a little pointy thing, because the ones that I saw, they all had little pointy things on the top, which I'm not sure what those are supposed to represent. Head, one of those, things you see in a stereotypical rice paddy kind of scenario, kind of thing. That's more Chinese than Japanese, I think. I don't know. And I don't know. The bottom part here, I was trying to be stylistic, but this just wasn't working for me. So I went back to the drawing board and I looked at things again, and I came up with this idea. And I liked this one. I thought this one looks like a kimono. This is sort of the collar, and these are the sleeves or whatever in the front of it. And Walter looked at it and goes, "It looks like a dress."
Well, when I first saw it, I didn't recognize that the blue part at the top was sleeves. Actually, I think when you showed it to me, you didn't have borders around it.
No, I think I did.
No, because I didn't really, to me, all I saw was the bottom part that looked like a dress.
Yeah, okay. And what, you thought this top was the bust?
Well, no, I didn't know what the top
a low cut.
Low cut. So, yeah.
Well, anyways, that blew the wind out of my sails.
Now I don't mind it.
Well, too late. So then I decided, okay, let's actually look at an actual picture of a kimono. And I found one, and I noticed that these parts that come out sort of at the back, they don't actually. They're more straight line because it's a wrap. So I tried to create a foundation paper piecing my own with it. Wasn't having a lot of luck with that. Tried the piecing. This is what I came up with. Not sure what that is. But it's not a kimono. It is just something. I don't know. So I got very discouraged. So I decided, okay, let's give in. Let's look at foundation paper piecing. I've done it before. I could probably do it. So I found this one. Now this one I like much better. It does have the little pieces at the in behind off to the side and the sleeves up here, but then you've got these features here for the middle part and the
Well, how
line.
come the bottom part with the features at the bottom, one side's a little bit more lopsided than the other?
Because that's probably because of the way when I was putting it
Oh,
together,
oh,
I screwed up.
oh, okay.
Okay. So yeah. Because they are even, and I've done it since in that. So this one I liked, and I could do it, and so I thought that this is where I'm going to go. This one has a more masculine look to it. I think it's because these almost look like they might be the legs of a pant, but they're not. But I think you get the idea. That looks like a kimono. So I purchased this pattern. It wasn't very expensive off of Etsy, and I had foundation paper piecing pieces, paper, and so I'm going to make those, all my kimonos, all like this, but this is not done in Japanese fabric. I didn't want to waste my Japanese fabric. I just did it in scraps. So that's why it looks like that. I didn't take a picture yet of the other one, how it looks, and I have to dig it, and I've got it all packed up for tomorrow's sew day that we're going to. So you'll see it anyways on Idiot Quilter next week. But then I got thinking, do I want to do this for a whole quilt? Because I'm going to need quite a few of them. And I could see this getting a little bit boring after a while, like in the making of it. So I went looking for some other paper pieced patterns too. So I found one that is the word good fortune in Japanese. I made that this morning. Don't like it. I think mainly it's because I should have used a more of solid fabric for part of it, for the actual letter shapes, and then the Japanese pattern fabric for the background, because it really doesn't look like anything when it's done. So I don't know if I'm going to actually even do that one or not. I have another pattern for a fan, but I think it's fairly large. But in my mind, I haven't tried it yet, and these are all foundation paper piecing, that fan might become the centerpiece of the quilt and the other things will go around it. I don't know yet. Then I found another. I thought, well, what about another shape, a different shape? And fans are iconic to Japanese culture. So I did find a foundation paper piecing that's fairly simple one for a fan, but it would show off the fabrics because you could make each vein in the fan, a different Japanese fabric or whatever. So I bought that from Etsy. I haven't made it yet. So that's what I'm playing around with. The ideas. We'll see how this all works out, goes together. I'm waiting for my foundation paper to come today from Amazon because I ran out of it yesterday. And I actually had a package of that. Her name is Carol Dokes or something, and her name is on this pad of paper, 100 sheets or something, or no, I think the one I had about 50 sheets in it. And that's what you print your pattern on. It just makes it easier for tearing. You could do it on regular copy paper too, for that matter. But I decided I liked using that, so I went to buy some more of her stuff. Holy crap! It's just newsprint, but it's got her name on it. And they want like $32 for 50 sheets of it or something like that. I said, the hell with that. So I bought 8.5 by 11 newsprint ream for under $20. And it's supposed to be coming this afternoon, sort of thing. Then after I did all that ordering, guess who said, oh, I've got some of that too. You could have bought some of that.
Well, you never asked me.
You never told me. Jeez. Who would have thought you had any of that?
I had it because somebody gave it to me to do a paper piecing.
Who was it? Somebody that gave you that to do paper piecing?
We won't talk about her.
Oh, that one. She whose name will not be spoken. Anyways, yeah. So that's the plan right now. And, actually I have found, since I was playing around with this paper piecing, I kind of like it. Which maybe it's meant to be because, I've got the solar flare one that's by Tula Pink that I've had for about 4 years, and it's all foundation paper piecing, and I have stayed away from it. But it's still got all the pieces together and everything there, like all the fabrics
Yeah,
still
you
in the
might
kit.
have less trouble getting good points on foundation paper piecing.
I get decent points. Actually, if the Alaskan quilt was done in foundation paper piecing, I think that would be better because those instructions, as you know, still working on that one though. Stay tuned. I'll tell you about that, not today, but another day. When I really feel like ripping my hair out again by the roots on a project. So this is going to be my latest project, working on this Japanese quilt. I don't know where I'm going with it. I'm not sure how it's going to evolve, but I have settled on what you have seen up here already. I have settled on this foundation one for my kimonos anyways. And this piece will be better because it is better on the one I actually did. I don't know how I screwed up on that one, but I did. Okay. So, of course, Walter says he likes that other one that he thought was a dress down better. Actually, there was a problem with that one too. When I was figuring this out, doing this, getting these on there without it being foundation paper piecing, not so easy because you can't just sew, cut and sew it straight. You have to be able to do basically a stitch and flip. And I figured it out how to do it, but it was a waste of fabric because I had to make this piece so much bigger than this. You can't make the two the same. So there is a way to do it probably, and I just don't know what that is. And don't worry about having to put comments down below and telling me what way it is to do it because I don't care. I'm not going to do it that way. So, okay. So what have you been working on?
Garden.
Yeah, every day he seems to go out and buy something else for the garden.
Yeah, well, I gotta go out and get something else too today. But anyway, so yeah, I'm pretty much done that.
You made it. Well, you started to landscape the backyard after 31 years, only because we got a rhubarb plant.
Yeah, I got to do some other stuff too. And I got to talk to the neighbor yet about something. So
Yeah, the fence. But when they come, they're home now. The car's out there. Our next door neighbor will look over the fence and go, "Oh my God, they did something that looks like gardening in their backyard."
She may offer me a hosta again because.
Oh, well, we have hostas.
Yeah, I know, but to put in the back or something.
Oh, yeah. But usually you can separate up a hosta.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's done.
Yeah, well, that's what. Didn't we do that once?
Yeah, I've done it before.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. For the other corner of the garden, I'll show pictures of this next week on the vlog for you to see because he's very busy making his little, and it's got little bricks around it, and it looks very stylish. It just sets off the whole backyard like like professional landscaping in one corner. Almost. Not quite. So that's what you've been working on. So we're off to a sew day tomorrow with his group and that. And I was getting things ready because that's why I don't have one of the ones I did in the Japanese fabric to show you because everything's packed up, ready to go out the door tomorrow morning. Have you decided what you're going to do? Because you've been screwing around.
I'm going to do a shirt for myself, which which is totally different fabric than what I had last night.
Oh, figures. He comes and goes, "Which one do you like better?"
Well, actually, I was thinking of making a shirt for you, but then I changed my mind.
Oh, fine. Be that way. Yeah, but you ask for my opinion on something and you just do your own thing anyways. It doesn't matter what I say. Like, I don't know, your fabric all looks like a dress. Well, it's not.
I found one with had fern leaves on it, so I decided.
Oh, okay. So you can hide in the bushes.
Yeah.
Camouflage.
It's camouflage.
I can still see you. Yeah. So that's what Walter's been working on. Okay, so announcements. Sewing with me, Wednesdays as per usual. Regular schedule down in the show notes. There it be. What did we talk about last week? Monday morning coffee with me. Talked about Pride Month and a whole bunch of other stuff as well, as I always do. The Monday morning coffee is always an eclectic discussion of whatever grabs my fancy at the time. On the Idiot Quilter, I talked about getting my Sojo back. I think it's now back. I'm back into creating again, which is a good thing because I didn't really feel like it when we got back from Japan. I think mainly because that one stupid quilt is still hanging over my head, but just cut my losses. I don't know. Next week, I'll go in and see one of the ladies at Ultimate Sewing. I was going to go in this week, but she was off this week. She said she'd give me a hand with it because she's taught a class with that Alaskan quilt. And I did take up one of her suggestions and it did help, but I think I need to really sit down with somebody who's done it and look at it and say, okay, how do you not cut off your points? Because that's what bugging the rear end out of me with that one. And on our live, we talked about FIFA and Pride Day. Pride Day, yay, FIFA. I'll be glad when FIFA's over with. I mean, we turned on the news at noon today, and all it is about FIFA. And people running out, go team, go team. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's just an excuse for people to get out there and kick their balls around. But, you know, I don't get into it at all. And I'm waiting. A year's time from now, the city of Toronto will be moaning the fact that they lost millions of dollars when they hosted FIFA. Yeah, too bad. Looks good on you. Okay, sorry if I'm raining on anybody's parade. You know, you FIFA fans out there, get a life, is what I say about that. But anyways, each his own. If you like FIFA, you go for it. Have a good time. Okay, so main topic today. Somebody asked for this a couple of weeks ago. We've been doing the AccuQuilts thing, and I'm getting a little tired of doing AccuQuilt, and you might be getting a little tired of me doing AccuQuilt as well. Doesn't mean I won't do another video about AccuQuilt, because I do have some other dies that are kind of interesting that I might show you, but right now we're putting that on hold, and they want to know all about stripology rulers, because I'd mentioned that, you know, if I don't use my AccuQuilt as much for cutting strips and things as much as I use my stripology rulers. And I have several different sizes of stripology rulers. I absolutely love stripology rulers, but there are some tips and tricks in using them. And and things that I didn't even know until just recently about, you know, for cutting and things. So I thought I would do a video about that and answer everybody's questions about using those rulers. They are an investment, but not near as much of an investment as buying an AccuQuilt. And in many ways, they are quicker to use because you don't have to set up your machine, get the dies out, do all that kind of stuff. You just grab your ruler and away you go. But there are some problems with it too. So I made a video. The video takes about 26 minutes, so I'm going to insert it here. If you want to pause for a second to get a coffee or whatever, and then turn it up or turn it on, then that's fine. And afterwards, we're going to look at some comments that have come in over the last week, and those comments have led me to the second topic of the day, which is what makes a good tutorial video. So, enjoy stripology. So this week we had a request to talk about how I use the stripology rulers by GE Designs. I've been using these for years. I absolutely love them. I started out with the extra large, which you can see right here in the picture that I'm showing, and I eventually bought two more. I bought the mini, I bought the medium-sized one. I'm not sure what they call this one, but it goes up to 12 inches, and then the mini, which goes up to 6.5 inches. And I use all three of these on a regular basis, almost daily. Anytime that I'm cutting fabric, these are my go-tos. Now, lately we've been talking about the AccuQuilt system and how much I like it, but it has its limitations. It's great if you want to cut applique pieces or specialized parts for a unit. But if you just want to cut strips, you can use your AccuQuilt for that, but I find that it is faster and a little bit more economical on fabric, pardon me, if you use the stripology rulers. So today I'm going to talk about things you need to know about using these and how versatile they are. I'm going to talk about how you can cut various widths of fabric that may not look at first glance like they're marked here on the ruler, and all the little built-in features that'll help you make more accurate cutting. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take you over to my cutting mat and we'll start there.
Okay, as I mentioned, there are 3 sizes of the Stripology rulers. I own all 3. There might be another one, I'm not sure, but these are what I own, and these are the ones I go to all the time, especially when I want to cut strips of fabric. So this is the extra large one. It's a pricey investment. It's a little over $100 Canadian, about 120 Canadian, depending on where you buy it. Excuse me for that, clearing my throat. And there's all kinds of markings on this which may intimidate you when you first see it. So let's just take a look at what these markings are. Here, along the bottom, are whole numbers and half inches. So you start at 0. We'll talk about why you want to start at 0. And then a half inch, then 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, etc., all the way up to 20 inches. So the biggest piece of fabric you can cut on here, width-wise, is 20 inches. So you will have to fold your fabric. We'll talk about that as well. Now there are stars marked on here as well. And it tells you down here, 1.5 inch cuts out of the stars, and the squares are 2.5 inch cuts. So when you're lining up your fabric on here, and let's say you want to do a 1.5, you can go here. 3, 4.5, etc. And if you want larger cuts and you don't want to have to move your fabric around, then you go to the little squares. They're 2.5 inch cuts. So I want a 2.5 inch cut, which is usually what I would cut if I was making binding, for example. I go to that square, and then it'll be 5, 7.5, etc. So really easy visually to find your spots. You don't need to use those, and I'll be quite honest about it. I never do. I just look here at the markings, but they're small, and it's easy to go into the wrong slot. So these might be of help. Along the edge, you have increments of 1 inch. And again, there are dark lines for that. Now they give you dark lines and they give you light colored lines. Depending on your fabric, you may want to use the dark lines to line up pieces. On light fabric, you may want to use the light lines to line up on dark fabrics. On the bottom of the ruler are markings here marked at 12.5 inches, 11.5 inches, etc. These are more for trimming up your blocks. I seldom use those markings, if never. You'll also notice there's a square pattern in all of this. So if you need, for example, a 4.5 inch square, you would just put your fabric in here and cut in the slots that are marked. And that will give you your nice square, and etc. So if you're trimming up blocks, you can use this. Now, I find this awkward to use for trimming up blocks. I would rather use my other square rulers for that. So I seldom use these markings that are here. But as I said, primarily, I use this ruler for making long strips of fabric, or for like sashing, borders, binding. Okay, that's the large size. If that's too much for you to handle, you can go to this size. I'm not sure what they call this size. Do they mark it on here? This is the squared ruler, Stripology squared ruler. Similar, the markings and everything work the same on this. This is just a little easier to handle on smaller pieces of fabric. But the same markings, same methodology. And if you want to go one size smaller, the mini. Again, all the same markings, all the same ways to use it. It's just that it's a little bit easier to handle. So I use this a lot on smaller pieces of fabric where I, no more than 6 inches width that I might want to cut. So these are the rulers that I have. As I said, they are an investment, but I think they're well worth it. But there are some tips and tricks that I want to go over with you. First of all, I want to talk about your rotary cutter. If you want to cut 8 to 10 layers of fabric, use a 60 millimeter. I do not recommend cutting that many layers of fabric. I recommend you don't go more than 6 layers because it's just easier to keep everything nice and flat and secure. If you want to cut less than 6, you can use your 45. I never use my 45. I always use my 60 millimeter. That's just personal preference. It's up to you, whatever you want to manage. Okay, the other thing is this ruler doesn't really have any kind of non-shifting pieces on it. Well, it has sort of. It has some rough strips here, which will keep it from sliding around on your fabric. You might want to use a hand weight. If you have trouble holding it down when you go to cut, you can put a hand weight on it. That's about a 5-pounder, no, it might be only 3 pounds, whatever. But that will help keep things secure when you're doing those long strips so that it doesn't slip. So that's a tip. The other thing you want is because you are putting your rotary cutter into these notches, the teardrops. That's where you start. Don't try to stick your blade in along in here. It's too awkward. It'll mark up your ruler. The teardrops are designed, and I'm doing this upside down, to fit your rotary blade. And that's where you start. And then you get a nice, clean cut. The other thing you want to do is keep your rotary cutter straight. If you put a lot of pressure on your rotary cutter, and this is where I would say use a brand new blade when you're doing a lot of cutting. Once you got it lined up, let me get it. It's awkward when I'm not over top it. Okay. When you have it in there, keep it straight. Don't veer from one side to the other because there's a little bit of give in these slots, and that will create what I call a wow in your strip. So you want to keep it as straight as you can and a nice steady pressure. And you'll have very few problems, if any. Okay, so we've talked about what the rulers are, how they're set up. Let's get a piece of fabric and let's do some cutting. Now, I am going to have to do this cutting upside down to you, but it'll be upside right for me just because of the way the camera works. So let's grab a piece of fabric and let's talk about the preparation of your fabric for this. As I said, you can't handle a full piece of fabric opened up in this. This is doubled over. If I open this up, you can see it is bigger than my ruler. So it's already folded in half. I'm going to fold it again. And I want to make sure that my folds are nice and straight that are here. So now I can get this under my ruler without any problem. But the other problem I have, if you look over here, I have a jagged edge. First thing I want to do is I want to square my fabric. So I'm just going to take this and pull it out of the way for a minute. And I'm going to put my fabric down. Now, the only reason I'm using a cutting mat upside down on here is so you can see this better. Normally, I would just use my cutting mat as is. So I'm making sure. Now, it's probably a good idea to press your fabric if there's any wrinkles in it. And if you want extra assurance for really accurate straight cuts, you could starch it or use acorn pressing solution. I have used some acorn pressing solution on this and I took out any of the wrinkles. So let's say I want to make 2.5-inch strips because I'm going to make some binding. So I'm going to put my ruler on here. I know this is upside down for you, but for me it's the right way. And At the bottom of this ruler, there is a 0 mark on the side, and there's a black line that goes all the way across. That's the line I want to use to line up my fabric. And I want to line up the fold of my fabric with that line. And if I have trouble seeing that line, I can go to the first white line. But I like the black. I can see it. And I'm going to move it over so that I am not cutting any of the jagged edges. I want to cut that jagged edge off. So this is squaring up like we normally would do with any other ruler. So I make sure my black line is lined up with my fold, and I just take my rotary cutter and away I go. So now I have a straight edge. Now for my 2.5-inch strip, really easy. I'm going to line up that black line at the bottom with the fold, and I'm going to slide this left edge over another black line so it is right up against the straight edge of the fabric. And now I'm going to cut my 2.5-inch strip. Now, you want to be careful. Keep your fingers well away. Make sure you're using a sharp blade and just put a little pressure on it. Now, I tend to hold the ruler this way, but if that's uncomfortable, you can take your weight, put it over here, a ways from that, and that's going to give you a little extra security so that things don't slide around. I'm going to find the 2.5-inch slot. So 0, 1, 2, 2.5. Now, if you have trouble seeing where these slots are, if you're going to do multiple cuts, you can take a little piece of washi tape and put it down along the inside or outside of that line, just so you can visualize it. It's because it's easy enough to, as you get going, to suddenly just move over one slot, and then you find out later that you've cut your piece too skinny or too wide. I've done it. So 2.5 in the bottom, and I'm going to give it steady pressure, and I'm going to cut as straight as possible. Okay. So I should have my 2.5-inch strip, and I do. Look at that. Magic. Perfect. No wows in it. Perfectly straight. And now I have a piece that I can use as binding or whatever. If I need more strips, then I would do the same thing. I'll line up the left edge of the ruler, the black line, and the black line at the bottom along the fold. And I just go my merry way. 1, so that's 2.5. 2.5, 2.5 is 5. 5 slot. 2.5 and 5 is 7.5, etc. I can use the little stars down here that I mentioned before, but I just tend to go across as is. Okay, so there we go. Makes fast work. I just cut 4 strips of fabric. But let's say you need something that's not a 1/2 inch or a whole number, but 1/4 of an inch. But there aren't any 1/4 of an inches you're going to say along this bottom line. Not a problem. Now, you probably can't see it on the camera, but down along this edge where I was lining up the edge of the fabric, next to it is a dotted line. There's actually 3 dotted lines. The first dotted line is a 1/4 inch away from the 0 line, this one that we were lining the edge up with. There's another dotted line, and that's another 1/4 inch, so a 1/2 inch. And there's another dotted line, or 3/4 of an inch. So if I want to cut a 2.25 inch strip, instead of lining up the edge of my fabric with the black line at 0, I'm going to line it up with the first dotted line, which is a 1/4 inch away from 0. And then all I have to do is go to the 2, not to the 2.5, just go to the 2, because 0 to 2 is 2 inches, from the dotted line to the 2 is 2 1/4. So I'll just cut at the 2 mark, and I now have a strip that's 2 1/4 inches wide. And I would do a similar thing if I needed a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. So yes, your ruler can handle 1/4 of an inch, even though they are not physically marked on here. Now, there are a couple of marks on the other end of this ruler as well. And they are also a 1/4 inch apiece. So depending on which way you're using the ruler, you always have those options there. Okay, so that's how you use the Stripology ruler. That's all there is to it. Now, some other things. I'm just looking at my cheat sheet here. Yeah, okay, so let's say, and let's switch rulers, shall we? Let's go to the medium-sized ruler. And let's say that now that I have my strips, I'm going to take my 2 1/2 inch strips, and I want to make those into 2 1/2 inch blocks, squares. So I can take several layers of fabric. Now I already have 4 layers of fabric here because of the fold, and I'm just going to place another one. You're going to make sure everything's lined up. Take your ruler, lay it on top, and now I've been squaring up along the black line, but you can square up on any line. It doesn't matter. So in this case of this, I'm going to square it up against this black line that's here onto the edge of my strip. I need to cut off this edge because there's a fold there, and I don't want that, so I'll cut that off at 0. I'm being kind of generous. I could go a little closer if you're afraid of wasting fabric. And I want to do blocks that are 2 1/2 inch squares. So I'm going to put my weight on here. Even though this is a little smaller ruler, it just gives me extra protection. Now I'm doing this to show you if you have trouble holding down the ruler. I seldom use my weight. I don't have really a problem with strength in my hands for doing this. Take the first cut, and I don't need to move my ruler. I know where this straight edge is now, and I want a 2 1/2 inch cut, and I want to do it again. So at 5, 7 1/2. And let's see, 10. Can I get a 10? I think I can. Oops. So there we go. I now have just cut, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 16, 24, 32. I just cut in a matter of seconds. You saw it in real time. 32 2 1/2 inch squares. Great if I'm having to make a lot of half square triangles. It makes really short work of it. And it's all very, very accurate, which is what you want. So, yeah, it works really well with that. Okay, I could have used, because this was smaller, I could have used the mini with it. So let's say I need, here's my fabric again. Now you're going to notice something. This piece of fabric I've been using is too big. Not a problem. Let's just fold it over. And this time, let's cut some, say, sashing strips. Let's say 1 1/2 inches. So I'm going to line up my black line on here with the fold at the bottom. I have the left edge with a black line. Now, even though this is pretty even, I still like to do that initial 0 cut just to make sure everything's nice and straight. Now this is a little thicker. So this is when I might want to use my weight. So cut, there it is, and I need 1.5 inches. So find my 1.5 inch mark and cut. And there we have it. There's my pieces of sashing. Just like that. Really simple. And you can see how fast this is. Now, I can do the same thing with the strip dies on my AccuQuilt, but you know, I have to get out my machine and I have to prep for that. There's going to be more waste with the fabric using the AccuQuilt. And in the time it would take me to get it set up, I can just knock off exactly what I need in a lot less time, especially when you saw when I'm making these squares. And of course, you make them any size you want. So this is why I love my Stripology ruler. Now, a couple of other warnings. One, keep your fingers well away. Yes, I know. You're going to say that a dummy would know that. Yeah, but you're cutting these long strips. If your hand's too close and for some reason you slip, well, best to be safe than sorry. The other thing too is to make sure you keep your blade in the slot straight, because you can, this is plastic, so you can put a gouge in one of your slots. And if you do that, you're going to have a wonky strip. So be careful with that. The other thing you want to be careful about is picking this up and storing it. These slots make it a little bit more wobbly. And over time, back and forth, if it's not kept flat, you could break one of these pieces right here. How I store them is I store them vertically. And underneath my table right here, I have a couple of spots where there are a little slot. And I just slide my ruler into it. It keeps it upright, vertical, and nice and flat with no problems. If you don't have something like that, then you need to find a spot where you can store your ruler flat. You don't want it sitting up against something leaning, because this is going to put, over time, a warp into your ruler. Now, that's more so important on the extra large than it is on this one or this one, because they're not as big, so less chance of warping. But nevertheless, you've spent a lot of money on these. You want to protect them. So, is there anything else I can tell you? Well, yes, there are tons of videos on YouTube from GE Designs, because it was GE Designs that developed the Stripology rulers. I have put a link to their playlist of videos in the show notes, so you can go to those and check them out for more tips and tricks. There are more things you can do with Stripology. I just showed you the most basic of what I do with them. There's also a book. In fact, I think Gudrun, the owner of GE Designs and designer of the Stripology rulers, I think she has several books out that have patterns in them that use the Stripology rulers for cutting out your pieces for them. I have yet to buy one of those books, but I really should invest in one. Okay, so that's how you use the Stripology system. I love it. I think it's worth the investment. They're pricey, but they're a lot less expensive than an AccuQuilt system. AccuQuilt has its place. So does Stripology. Do these get rid of all of your rulers? No, they do not. But it's good to have them. You will use them regularly. And if you want my advice on which size to buy first, I would suggest the medium size one first to try it out. But I think you will find that as you get going, you're going to want the extra large as well. And you'll probably want the other one too. Complete set. Okay, so I hope that helped you out. You can ask more questions about them. Put your questions or your comments in the comment section of the YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability.
Okay, so we're back. I hope you found that helpful. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know in the comments below too. Are you a great user of stripology rulers? You absolutely love them. Or are you somebody who said, I don't want to spend that kind of money on rulers. I've got enough rulers. I can do whatever I want with the rulers I have, which is perfectly all right and fine. And there are maybe some people that don't even know what stripology rulers are, although they've been around for quite a while with that. So let me know. Put them comments down below and we'll address those comments next week. Okay, so here's some of the comments that came from last week. Jeannie says, oh, Stephen, I made a queen-size quilt with that die, meaning the double wedding ring one that I showed last week, and many 4-letter words describe my experience. Kind of know how she feels about that one. When I finished, I threw that whole die into the trash to never see it again. It was a nightmare. Well, I don't go as far as that because it's an investment for that. But as I said, it's one that AccuQuilt dropped the ball on. And that particular one I have, they discontinued. They do have a replacement, which I think would work better, but I'm not investing in it. So then Ruth says, we have close friends who will be celebrating their 50th this summer, and I thought, perfect, a great time to unpack and use those AccuQuilt double wedding ring dies. I used scrap fabric to experiment and failed. Tried again and it was better, but still not up to my standards. I walked away and came up with plan B. Perhaps I will try again in the future. I watched and rewatched the videos on AccuQuilt and did not find them particularly helpful, especially when it came to those close-up joining Y-seams. Thanks for your video and validation. And on top of that, Sarah says, I've also found AccuQuilt's directions lacking. I wish they would include fabric amounts for the whole quilt instead of just one block. The time it saves me cutting is spent doing math calculations to figure out if I have enough fabric. Okay, well, two things going on there, but I want to address the first thing that both people talked about, in that AccuQuilt does not do a good job of supplying clear instructions for how to use the more complicated dies. They have a YouTube channel. They make videos for it regularly, but they are more concerned with selling product than they are teaching you anything. They are not particularly, the two ladies that do it, I do not think they are particularly good presenters for a variety of reasons. And so I thought, people have said they want tutorials from me, and I have been doing some now over the last few months, and from us. And I'm not going to say that every one of the tutorials or the demos that I have done are absolutely perfect. There are so many factors that influence into doing a decent presentation in this format. But I thought, you know, all of us have watched many YouTube videos about how to do things, and we all have our opinions about what makes a good presentation. And so I thought we'd just go over what makes a good presentation, and some of these things I should take as my own advice too, because I have failed at a few of these at times as well. So I did a search. Let me just find my notes about what one, when making a YouTube or a video tutorial, what one should consider. And I compared it to what I put down. So I'm going to go through this list with you. We are, and we're going to get opinion and get Walter's opinion too about all this. I'm a little biased when it comes to it. I used to teach students how to give presentations. Okay. And I was very particular about presentations because I had gone to too many professional development days where somebody stood up at the front of the room and they were a talking head and death by PowerPoint.
That was all my meetings.
Okay.
I kept saying to the bosses I worked with, I said, you need to send these people out to get presentation skills.
Yeah. And presentation skills are not a natural thing for most people. They are something that needs to be learned and practiced. So let's take a look at what some of these things are. And then the next time I do one of these demos, you can apply them to me and rate me. Be kind. So let's see here. All right. So they talk about your pre-production and planning. Okay, this is one of the things I had. You know, make sure you're organized and you're ready before you start to hit the record button on a presentation, because there's nothing more annoying, and I'm sure you've seen presentations on YouTube of this, where the person goes, oh, I need that. Just a minute. And there's this blank air. All you see is their cutting mat or something like that. And you hear them rustling around in the background. And then they come back and they've got their piece of fabric or whatever tool they needed and start to do their thing. And then they get halfway through and go, oh, shoot, I forgot. Okay, that's bad planning. And so they make some suggestions here about the planning. They say define one goal. Okay, that's a problem. Some YouTube videos try to do several different things in one video. That's extremely confusing. This is not the time to multitask.
Well, not only that, isn't it also, people will say, oh, well, this is one way of doing it. There's this way and this way and this way and this way. And I would say you should do it the one way. And then maybe at the bottom or at the end of the video, say there are alternative ways of doing it as well. So
yeah, because you'll get confused. I saw a video when I was looking for doing that. What's that?
That was I think it was a mosquito.
Only you would get a mosquito inside the house. Walter's a mosquito magnet. Anyways, see, we digress from our presentation. I watched a video when I was trying to figure out how to use that AccuQuilt wedding double wedding ring block, and the guy who does it is a fairly good presenter and knows what he's talking about, but he did too many things. He showed 3 different ways you could sew those pieces together, and it got too much, because you just, when you go to a video on YouTube, at least when I do, I want it done and dirty. Like, here we go. This is what you do. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, done. I don't want a whole lot of jibber jab about alternative methods. As Walter said, if you want to give alternative methods, save it for the end. Pick the one that's best, stick to it. And I think that's what they're saying here.
Yeah, we saw one video a while back about somebody doing a bag. And they said their bag was designed one way, but then they kept saying, oh, well, you can put this in it, or you can put that in it, or like you can change your fabric, or you can change the way the handles attach, or stuff like that, right? But that's all while they were trying to show you the one thing. Yeah. So I would think that it would be better to say, have a bag and do it the way the picture is. And then when you get to the end, you say, well, here's some options you might think you want to do differently. So
yeah, and that's another thing too. I've watched some videos where you think they're going to show you how to do this particular project, then their pictures or whatever are not exactly the same as what they told you they were going to do. Well, why do you do that? No, stick to, as Walter said, you stick to the one you said you're going to do.
Well, and not only that, you also should be using fabric that you can see on the screen, not like a really heavy patterned fabric, so that one you can see stitches on if you're stitching or something like that, or fabrics that are easy to see. And also, let's say they're showing you, for me, they're showing you a stitching thing or something. They should use like a white fabric with black thread,
like a contrasting thread, so it'll show up.
So it'll show up, because I mean, in real life you'd probably use the same color thread as your fabric, so it won't show up. But for demonstration purposes, you're trying to show somebody how it works, so you should do stuff so that it shows up on camera.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you why people don't do that way. And I'm guilty of this myself. Because usually when someone does a tutorial, what they're working on is an actual project that they're going to complete. And this is going to be the final product. They're not thinking about, they're trying to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to do a demo, but I'm going to do it with the actual thing that I'm going to create. And that means, like, for example, like you said, the thread's probably going to blend into it because normally that's what it would be like. They're not showing you. If they were to use a contrasting thread color that didn't necessarily go with their project. So you've got to decide, if you're going to make a tutorial for something, are you concentrating on showing somebody how to do it, or are you going to show somebody a demo of to what you created? There's a difference between those two. Know the audience, they said. Yes, I used to teach that to the kids. Figure out who your audience is. Now, in a school setting, this is a little artificial because the presentation is usually for everybody else in your class. So, you know that they're your class. But you can walk into an environment where you may not know who the people are made up in the audience. It's strangers to you. So you've got to do some research and think about it. If you're on YouTube, for example, who is your audience? Now that's easy when I'm doing a sewing or a quilting one, because I know that my audience are people who sew and quilt. But then you have to identify, what level are they at? Are they, like, sometimes some videos you watch, and I'll give you an example. This Alaska quilt one, I watched the videos from the creator of that design, and she obviously was appealing to people she felt were advanced sewers because she left out steps. She made an assumption that if you're watching this, you must already be advanced, so I don't have to go through every little detail for you. And actually, I think, in my way of thinking, that doesn't matter. You should always assume that your audience knows less about the topic than you do. And doesn't that make logical sense? Why would they be seeking out your video to learn something if they already knew how to do it? So, at the risk of boring them with minute detail, do so, because it'll make things a little clearer. Now, they talk here about writing a script. Okay, I'm bad. I have sort of a script in my head. I might have an outline of what I wanted to talk about, but I do not write a word-for-word script on anything that I do. Mainly because I'm lazy.
And isn't it kind of hard to read it all too? So.
Yes. That mean some people actually use a teleprompter. I have a teleprompter on my phone that I could use. I find it awkward, and on a phone it's really small print. But you know the ones that are giving a presentation that are reading, that have a script, because you will not hear and there probably won't be a million cuts. And you know the ones I'm talking about out there, that where they can't get through an entire sentence without a cut. Those ones are usually not well scripted. But in the other extreme is, if it's too well scripted, then they're just reading. And when you read something to an audience, depending on the positioning of where you can see your notes, you may not be making eye contact with your audience. You're looking over here at one side or down here, something like that. And you read faster. Mm-hmm. So you go through it much faster, and it's harder for your audience to focus on what you're saying through it all. So yeah, I think an outline is fine. I would not go as far is to write a word-for-word script.
Or you could do points just to make sure you've missed things.
Yeah, that's what I mean by an outline, like points, so you don't miss anything and you don't go out of order. Mm-hmm. They talk about include visual cues, map out what will happen on the screen next. Okay, it's important to have visuals when you're doing a tutorial on YouTube, I think. I mean, if I just had to listen to somebody tell me how to do something, I wouldn't. I'm a visual learner. And I think a lot of people, when it comes to sewing and quilting, are visual learners too. So you need to show them. So that means you've got to make sure your technology is set up properly. And what's another thing I had in my brainstorm notes here was good technology. And I I have failed at that a few times. There's been a few of my videos, or one of them anyways, recently, that I realized as I was explaining something, I wasn't in camera shot. You couldn't see it. I went back and did it. I didn't take it out of the video. I just came back and said, okay, I'll show you this again now that I'm in frame with it. It's very easy to get out of frame, and it depends on how your technology is set up. Ideally, I should have a camera mounted to my ceiling, pointing down. That would be the best way, but I can't do that given the setup I have here. Well, it could be done, but it would be a major running wires across my ceiling, and I really don't want to do that kind of a thing. So I have a stand that I can take my phone and put on it, and I can fold it down so it looks sort of like it's overhead, but it's still not ideal. And you've seen that in my videos. Also, because of where I have to place it, my stuff is upside down to the audience or to me at any given time. So I try to turn everything around so that it's from the audience's point of view, but when I have to cut something, I have to turn it back around to face me because I can't cut backwards. Because you want to see fingers and blood spurts? Maybe you do. So technology is a big factor, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But visual cues, or not just mapping it out, know what you're going to show, but make sure you have things for that. Now, people do step outs sometimes, and they have prepared each piece in advance. Well, if you do that, that's a lot of time. It's probably worth it, but I don't do step outs usually. I do it live right then and there on the spot. You can decide for yourself whether that's the best way or not, but I mean to do step outs for every part of the way. And you know what I mean. If you've watched cooking shows, so you put it in the oven at 350 degrees. They put in the raw stuff into the oven, and then they pull out the good stuff that's already cooked. That's a step out. So they're making 2 meals out of that. Or they say, now take your onions and chop them all up. Well, they've got an onion there. They've got a knife to take one swat, and then they bring in the cutting mat, and all the vegetables are all cut up nice. Those are step outs. But that takes a lot of time to do. So, you have to figure that out as a presenter for yourself if it's worth your time. Talk about rehearse your script out loud. Well, if you don't have a script, you can't do that, can you? But if you're nervous about talking in front of people or in a camera, yes, rehearsal is a very good idea. You'll feel like an idiot when you're rehearsing. I used to tell the kids this, but go in a room where nobody else in your family can hear you or whatever, and just warn them that they will hear you talking to yourself, and do that. It helps you get over, especially if there's certain words that are difficult to pronounce. And I mispronounce words all the time, but I don't have a script. So then they talk about setting up, and this is the technology here, setting up your space and gear. And okay, the worst, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, you get on, you watch this tutorial, and the audio is horrible. You crank it up as loud as you can on your system, and you still can't hear them. You gotta test your audio. Every time we do one of these, every time, we test the audio before we start to record.
And we've heard creators say, well, I don't like listening to myself.
Well, get over it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, get over it. It says clean the interface. If doing a screen recording, hide your desktop icons and stuff like that. Yeah, if you notice what you see up on the screen right now, there's other stuff there, but it's in behind. I always expand full screen for these things because you don't need to see my other icons on there. You don't need to see other things that are hidden in behind the windows. It's all a distraction. You should minimize the distraction on your screen. Right now, if I don't want you seeing us, I push a button. Now you can't see us, but you can hear us. So I've just removed a distraction because our great and tremendous beauty, I am sure, is just diverting you from the theme here. Yeah, I live in my imagination a lot. And then they talk about other things like optimizing your aspect ratio. This is all technical, nerdy stuff. Brighten the scene. Yeah, you want to be able to see it. Lighting is important and difficult. I found that on some of those AccuQuilt videos that I did when I look back on them, the lighting was too bright. And depending on what color fabric I was using or anything like that, you could get a shine off it, or white is horrible to put under something because it just out through the screen. So with my lighting here, and my lighting is not professional, I found that if I turn off one of the lights over by my cutting mat where I was filming these things, and I dim down the other light that's there, I got a much better quality of lighting. To me, it seemed dark, but when I saw it on the video, it was okay. So yeah, constantly, as creators, we're constantly fighting for lighting all the time. Recording efficiently. I'm not sure what this is supposed to mean. Start directly with value proposition, skip long autobiography. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Show and tell, just tell. Show, don't tell, just tell, and embrace mistakes. Okay. The big one here is the people who come on, and we've all seen it and heard it. Hi, it's me. I'm sorry. I haven't made a video in a month. I've been sick. The dog died. My daughter got a divorce. My grandchildren are sick. My husband's a bastard. Okay.
And either that or they go on and for days talking about the recent things they've been working on and everything else. And to me, if you're doing a demonstration, you need to get direct to the point of what you're doing.
Now, there's nothing with a little introduction to build your audience in. Like on our videos, I always show you what we've been working on right off the bat. But generally speaking, if we've got a main topic we're going to go to,
I know, but I mean,
we go right into it.
But what we're doing is this so chatty or whatever. But if you're doing a actual demonstration video, right?
Yeah.
You just go right straight to the demonstration. You don't go on and talk about all the other projects that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, that's true. Because people who have found you for that specific tutorial just want you to get on with it.
Yeah, they just want you to go ahead and do it. I watched a guy, like I said, a few years ago, I was watching videos on buying a new car. And I saw one that was doing a review on a certain car. And the first 20 minutes of the video, all he did was talk about himself. And I turned him off after about 20 minutes and wrote him a nasty comment and said, I came here for a review of your car. I didn't want to know what happened, what was you were going through.
However, to be on their side for just a second, some people do videos on YouTube because for them it's a social thing, and they really feel that their audience is interested in what they are doing in their life. And they may not be doing it necessarily for egotistical reasons, although many do. That's just the nature of their channel. Like my Monday morning coffee with Steven is a more personal type of thing. I am not usually trying to teach you something or show you a demo or something. I'm talking about what's been going on in my life. And I make no bones about it, that's what that video is all about. So if people like it, they can stay. If people don't want that, they can skip it. They don't have to pick it.
Yeah, but if I go on to say online and say, oh, show me how to sew a French seam, I want to get to the point fairly quickly.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, for some people, making videos is more than teaching.
Yeah, but then that video shouldn't be a tutorial.
No, I get what you mean, but I'm just making an excuse for them.
Okay,
so
fine.
They don't feel bad. I'm not making an excuse. I can understand why that happens, but it is annoying. And when you want to know something, you want to know something.
And like you were saying about AccuQuilt, they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
So in the middle of your tutorial, they're probably trying to entice you to buy something else.
Oh, yeah. And then they start to chat. These two women get together. Well, so it's summertime. What's your favorite drink? Who cares? Who cares? I want to know how to do a Y seam. You know, like, I don't care what your favorite drink is. You and I are never going to do lunch. So, like, and even if we would, I'm not ordering for you. So, yeah. So, we've all seen these types of videos like that. Now, here's one though. It says, embrace mistakes. If you stumble, pause for 3 seconds and repeat. You can easily slice out the errors during the post-production. Yes, you can if you edit. I personally don't mind seeing somebody's minor mistake. What I mean by that is they get going and they're sewing along like, oh, I just forgot. I shouldn't have sewn that together yet because I needed to do this. So I will do this. I don't think you need to necessarily edit that out unless this is happening every 3 seconds. Then it might be a problem. But I want to see the mistake because you've heard the old adage, you learn from your mistakes. Yes, you do. That's why I created the Idiot Quilter. And that's why I show you my mistakes and I talk about them. And I've come under criticism for that. Some people says, you shouldn't really point out your mistakes. Why not? If it can help somebody else. When I first got into quilting, all I found were videos that were perfect. And I thought, I'll never be able to do this. It was intimidating. These people are just sewing that up and it works for me. I try this, it doesn't work for me. What am I doing wrong? I don't know. Maybe I'm not meant to do this, kind of a thing. And I got discouraged with that. Then I decided, no, that's editing. They're not showing their mistakes because I have learned, as we all know, everybody, no matter how good a sewer you are, you will make mistakes. So people can learn from those. So you made a mistake. No big deal. How did you recover from it? Show people that it doesn't always come out perfect the first time, but you can correct it. So yeah, embrace the mistakes. Yes. If you've got too many of them though, then you do need to do some editing, I think, because then it just gets annoying. Then they talk here about editing for engagement, and they talk about, where's my cursor? Talk about tightening the pace. Okay, cut out long pauses, filler words, and repetitive actions to repeat the viewer's time. Yeah, and this is where having at least a bulleted list of what you're going to do will help. It keeps you on track, keeps you from repeating stuff. Ooh, there you go. I just had an There are some YouTube creators who every time, they made an there's a cut. So they get rid of their We're human beings. We do use sometimes. So unless it's really, really annoying, and that's where practicing would come in, to get rid of that, then I think the cuts are more annoying because you always know a cut because suddenly, you're
suddenly
looking at
it bounces. Yeah.
And that takes a long time to do that, to cut those out. So unless they're extremely annoying or you've got way too many of them, I wouldn't worry about it. As a content creator, I wouldn't worry about cutting them out. Guide the eye. Add visual anchors like animated arrows, text overlays, and mouse click highlights to draw attention to critical errors. Okay, I have a pet peeve with this. There are many content creators out there that like to use little gimmicky things. They have little captions, or they have the stock. Oh, I hate these. There's every other sentence, they've got a stock picture. So I was so worried about, and then you see this picture of a woman going, ah, and there, or sound effects, like they're thump or whatever. Okay, those are gimmicks. And they're annoying as hell. One or two might be cute. Constant. They're extremely annoying. At least they annoy me. What do you think? Do they annoy you?
Yeah, too many little quirks. I mean, sometimes if they just put a little tiny arrow on something that they really want to show you, that might help sometimes, but a lot of that sort of can be annoying.
If they're using, okay, let's put it this way. If they're using the little icon or little graphic or something for a very specific reason that will help the viewer understand the point they're making a little clearer, then I think they're worth using. But if they're just throwing them in because they're using them for attention grabbers, because nobody wants to stare at somebody, okay, like us for the length of time, like all that time, they want to see something else. But then if you're doing a tutorial, you should be focusing on your project, not on yourself too. So that in itself is a visual.
Also, if I like to hear somebody talking when they're doing a tutorial, guiding you through it as they're talking. Now, I've seen ones where they don't talk at all.
Yes.
And you're trying to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that could be because they have a language barrier or something like that. But still, personally, I would like to see somebody talk and and tell us what they're doing and when they're doing it. Like, I'm going to the sewing machine and sew this piece together or something like that.
Yeah, I do too. Although I have seen there's a couple of YouTube creators that there's one lady who makes beautiful bags, and her videos are really good, and she doesn't say a word in them. But they're really well put together so you can follow along. Now, I have a feeling in this case, because I think she's from India, I think there's a language barrier, and that's probably why she does it that way. But most of the time, yeah, people who don't speak or take you along with them and explain each step point by point, those are not necessarily good for it. We need to see things. This one, drop the music volume. Why do content creators feel they need to have a soundtrack in the background? It is not necessary. It's a distraction. If you're trying to explain how to do something and there's some music playing in the background, it doesn't matter what volume level you have set that at. It's annoying. Again, do you need it for a specific purpose that will help to explain what you're explaining better? If not, get rid of it. It's extraneous material. I think because we're all conditioned to television programs where there is a soundtrack in the background, and when we watch a program, we're probably not even aware of that soundtrack in behind. But there's a reason why there's a soundtrack in movies and things like that. That enhances emotion subconsciously in us. So if they're trying to make a very emotional scene have more impact on you as the viewer to make you feel something, they will pick a music that's appropriate for that, or they want to increase your level of excitement. Think of action movies. Think of the music that's in action movies. It's usually loud, and it's usually really fast pace, and that. Or a horror movie. I mean, a horror movie would not be as much horror, if there wasn't a soundtrack to it, because it's the music in the background that gets us subconsciously, builds up the emotional effect in us. But do we need that if we're teaching somebody how to do a Y seam? I don't think so. Mind you, for most people, doing Y seams is a horror show. One of them. But yeah. So, but there's nothing more annoying than when their soundtrack is over top of their voice with it. So I would say just don't even bother doing it. I think that's... No, they had a little bit. Okay, this one. Always include closed captions to maximize accessibility and video engagement. I find closed captions extremely annoying. However, if it's on YouTube, you don't have to do anything about it. There's a button on YouTube if you're watching it. If you like to have captions while someone's explaining something to you, you can turn them on yourself. The creator of the video doesn't have to put them in. Sometimes putting on the captions is a good idea if there's somebody has a heavy accent you don't understand. That sometimes does help. But I find them annoying. That's why I hate movies with subtitles. I don't want to be reading while I'm watching a movie. If I want to read, I'll read a book. But it depends again on your background as far as all that's concerned, like your presentation background. So one other thing they didn't say though, in if you mention that there's going to be a link in your show notes for something you've talked about, put the link in for God's sakes.
Yes, a lot of people do that. Say, oh, you'll go to the link below afterwards to find out more information about something.
Yep.
And then you go to the bottom and there's nothing there.
In the 3D printing world, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about 3D printing. And there's some that I really love there, and I watch them all the time. But they have an annoying habit of telling you about something and saying, I'll put the link down below. You go down below, the link is missing. And these are people who have been doing videos for years. They're not newbies to this format and the whole bit. Now, I don't put links. I'm getting better at it, but there's sometimes I figure, well, I don't need to put in a link for that because
actually sometimes it's better if you just put if it's possible. I don't know if it is. Put in the links before you start talking.
What do you mean?
Like in the can you do that in the video before you post it? Like
no,
okay.
That's in post production.
All right, okay. Because when I used to send memos at work, I'd say please see attached, but I used to always I forget the attachment. I always put the attachment first.
Yeah, you can't do that when you upload a video. That for that.
All right.
You have to do that afterwards. But I have gotten better over time. Everything that's new that's come up. See, I assume people can find it because there's this wonderful thing called Google. And I have found people are very lazy. They don't want to plug it into Google and try to find it. So if it's something like the fabric is a big one. I do not put links in for the fabrics that I show. Why? Because those fabrics are available in many different spots.
Well, like it's like sometimes when I make a shirt, I'll have the fabric for 2 or 3 years before I make the shirt. Well, that too. And so somebody, I really like that fabric. What's it called and where did you get it? Yeah, I can tell you where I may remember where I bought it. I'm not sure, but they no longer have it because that fabric's 2 years old. I've had it in my stash for a while.
And I do have a tendency I don't know who the designers of the fabric that I bought, like the Japanese fabric I bought.
Well, you'd take a picture and run it through Google Eye or whatever.
Like that's what the viewer can do.
Yeah.
And I have mentioned this several occasions before, there's a wonderful device, a feature of Google. There's a little camera thing up in the one corner of the search. What you can do is if you see something on one of the YouTube videos, pause it, get out if you're on your computer, you can do a screenshot and capture that image of that fabric, or do it with your camera to the screen by pausing it, and you feed it into Google under that thing, and it'll find it. It'll find the name and where you can get it. It's amazing. It does this with anything around. More people need to be using that. So if you don't know what the name of something is, so you go, well, how can I find it? It's like the old days when I used to complain about.
You can do that too if you have garden plants that you don't know the name of. You take a picture of your garden plant and send it into Google, and it'll tell you what it is.
It'll tell you what it is. Yeah, it's amazing the way that works, and I use that more frequently now than I had at the beginning of it. Once I figured that out, so you can do it that way too. But in the case of my videos that we make, I try to include, for anything that I think is significant that we're talking about or showing, I try to put in a link to where you might find it. But in the case of fabric, you never know where it's going to be. Because, I may have bought it here in Ontario. You may live in Texas. So, not necessarily going to get it. Was there anything else? Oh, one thing they didn't talk about is voice. Not everybody who makes YouTube videos has a voice for YouTube videos. And what I mean by that is you can't talk down here like this. So when you're explaining something, you know, because they're cranking up the volume and they still can't hear you. You have to be clear. So you check your microphone, and you have to be able to pronounce most of your words correctly. Yes, you will stumble over something, or a word will come up, you just don't know how to say it. I say, as this happens to me many times, I say, I don't know how you say it. So spell it for the person if you think it's important for that, or find a different word. But be clear. Don't mumble. And again, that may have to do with personality. Some people are shy. But if you're that shy, why are you making YouTube videos? Get over being shy. This is not a shy medium. Okay? So, yeah. Anyways, that whole topic was generated out of the comments that you sent. And so if we take it back to those comments, to AccuQuilt, their videos suck. I'm sorry, but their videos suck. I think they're doing a disservice to their customers because of that. Their product is expensive. It's a major investment. It behooves them, I love that word and I use it every chance I can. It behooves them not to make decent videos. And you know, more people need to complain to them in the comment section. I'm pretty sure they'll ignore them because I have not found that AccuQuilt gives good customer service on any level. Maybe you have found out differently. I'm just talking from my experience only. But it annoys me to no end when you're looking for an answer and they're just compounding your problem because they're not directly handling it. You know, that one with the Alaska quilt, I watched her videos. Suddenly she jumped right at a crucial point. I'm going, yay, I'm going to see now how to do this. And isn't this fabric fabulous and pretty? It's so pretty. And then she's gone on to something else. If I could jump through a computer screen and strangle her, I would. I would. And I have seen too many of those ones before. Now what my equivalent to strangling is delete. That's my strangle button. Delete. Okay. So I think that's it. Yeah. Next week I'm playing with a question that we are going to try and answer. Maybe. I haven't consulted him yet about it, but I never do. He's just here for the eye candy. You know that. Is there a creative gene? You hear people say all the time, oh, I don't have any imagination. I can't do that. I can't create. I'm not creative. So does that mean those of us that can create, we have a special gene? Is there a creative gene? Tune in next week for So Chatty. We're going to explore that idea further. Okay. Any final words from you?
Nope.
No. And, well, all of your tutorials we watch are absolutely clear.
Yeah.
Wait, you don't.
I need to get back to doing my free motion. So.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Because I want to do a video where you will show us how you do that.
Okay.
Yes. So stay tuned for that too.
All right.
Okay. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi. I'm just going to interrupt my program for just 1 second to remind you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for future notifications. That's all I ask of you. Show me a little love. Thanks.